Hello everyone, welcome to Carrow Road. It is exceptionally late, so apologies that this report is a little bit later than it has been. I am still outside Carrow Road though, by the way. Hopefully I don't get run over. That is the Barclay end, who, along with the rest of Carrow Road, would have seen a really quite difficult afternoon for Norwich City. I've been trying to sort of think about this a little bit while I've been doing my stuff for The Athletic too. And I think... So Norwich lost 3-1 to Man United. A lot happened and there were a lot of subplots, it has to be said, and sideshows almost to possibly the reality of the game. So it kind of has to be picked apart a little bit. But the first things to say is I think we probably all sensed this before the game, possibly. You know, United are not rubbish. There's a lot of sort of talk about what United are, but you know, in reality, they had Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial playing up top today. I thought they had some players who haven't seen much of directly and in the flesh, like McTominay, who were really, really useful and awkward. You know, there's a lot about Man United that sort of permeates history in terms of what they are, and maybe that's how they carry on at times as well. But I thought, you know, with all that they have in terms of what they are and what they always will be, I was kind of expecting a weaker side, as in, and I'm talking about belief and arrogance and attitude, and they really weren't. They were pretty resolute, and it was just like watching a Man United side in general, to be honest, in terms of Norwich coming up against them. So fair play to them, and it'll be interesting if maybe they've turned a little bit of a corner from what's been a clearly difficult patch, and maybe they'll put a bit more form together, because they've still got plenty of players that can do it. I would feel if they were struggling, then some of that does come from possibly the way that they've been managed, but and clearly their recruitment has been very different to how it has been in past seasons. So where they go from here will be interesting. But that's been the case for a lot of teams that Norwich have played this season, because a lot of them have looked quite good and Norwich City have had a lot to deal with. And the worst possible outcome from sort of, say, 3 months into the season would be that each team Norwich have played have looked pretty good against Norwich and not done a lot else against other teams. You want to see teams doing well against Norwich because they're in good form and they are finding their feet, not because when they come up against Norwich they're a level above them. So it's a hard one, this, because I have to be honest, I thought Norwich were kind of outclassed today in lots of areas. Norwich want to be a possession-based team, but and this is not just today, this is for several weeks now, they just don't keep the ball well enough. They don't use the ball well enough. I caught hold of a couple of clips from the Championship last year, and I know it's not fair to compare because of the level that Norwich are up against, but the swift one-touch passing and the use of space was just... There's been none of that for a few weeks now, and that's my issue really. That a lot of talk about Norwich's philosophy and how they want to go about things, but I haven't seen any evidence of it. They're not. Their play is slower than what they're coming up against. The passing is less progressive. You have to question the individual form of some players now as well, because although they're trying to take risks, they're also struggling to create chances. Norwich are struggling to create chances, and when Todd Cantwell has such a gilt-edged chance 4 minutes into a game like this, you have to take it, and you certainly have to hit the target, because, you know, the other side of it, the game was done basically. So it is a worry. I think physically it's a worry as well, and I know again Norwich had a lot of injuries. Physically some players are coming up to speed, and if other players are losing form, that makes it hard. But you know, Norwich look like they are playing at a different pace. But again, you know, this would be fine if we didn't have the Palace, the Burnley and the Villa games, really, which I know come with extenuating circumstances, but you only get 38 games in the season, and you know, maybe it is that come the end of the piece some of the issues and circumstances have really not helped Norwich, but they haven't been able to work their way around them and through them either. So you know, there are elements of today that were a big worry, and that's clearly an issue. Obviously, it's worth throwing in that I thought the first VAR decision was an absolute joke, and symptomatic of them apparently seeming to change what they want VAR to be over the course of a weekend, or certainly a week, which is disgraceful behaviour. You can't do that. The first decision was a joke. I think the second one, I can understand why it was given. My first view was that it was a handball initially. Then the more I saw the replays, the more I was questioning it, because Todd's arm was actually a bit lower once it struck. Once the ball struck his arm was actually a bit more recoiled in. Also, it could have hit his back. I don't think it was particularly clear cut. Again, are we making clear and obvious changes or clear and obvious errors? What are the referees trying to do? So they were, of course, talking points. Injuries are going to be an issue again, possibly, depending on how Tim Krul, Ibrahim Amadou and Jamal Lewis come through the next week. Norwich head to Brighton, and it's a huge game. Heads up, I'm off. I'm actually off now for a week, 10 days, so I will miss the trip to Brighton, much like I did 3 years ago when Norwich got done 5-0 under Alec Neil. Hopefully that's not an omen, but I'll be paying attention to the game away from it, so I hope you'll forgive me a rare weekend off. And then, of course, it's Watford down here at Carrow Road the following Friday, which, I mean, what a crucial game that is, and that's where we are. You know, the realities of Premier League football. That was tough. Carrow Road tried to stick with it. They obviously desperately wanted to do something to pay tribute to Duncan Forbes, but doing it actually on the pitch during the game proved a step too far, and that was a real shame. But I think I'll leave it there, because, as I said, there's plenty to pick holes in. You have to have the caveat of who Norwich were playing, and the fact that you have to give United credit that they are a better side than where they are in the table. The biggest question now is whether Norwich are a better side than where they are in the table, because you'd have to say 10 games in they probably are where they deserve to be at the moment, and what we need to do is see is Norwich adapting to the tasks that opposition teams are putting in front of them, because so far it does really look like opposition teams know how to work Norwich out. Norwich have got to adapt to hopefully find something a bit more positive to deal with. There is a story going on The Athletic on Monday. There will be one or two pieces over the course of the week, so keep an eye on social media, on Twitter especially, if you want to follow what those are, so you don't miss it. And of course, subscribe to The Athletic if you haven't already, because it is completely worth the money, not just for my stories, but for everyone else's, or maybe even more so for everyone else's, to be honest. So make sure you log on there. If you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, thank you for your time. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, or whichever, so that you are alerted to when these videos pop up in future. But it is very late. I didn't really get my extra hour in bed, so I'm going home. I'm starving. We'll sort all that out. I will probably see you in a fortnight's time. So in the meantime, take care, and don't get too down about it all. There's always another game.